Welcome to the Phēnyx Lounge, where we're building a community centered around fitness, wellness, and mindset. We're curating a list of teachers, experts, and influencers to share their pro tips for staying healthy and learning how to rise again in all aspects of life. If you hear any gems, be sure to hashtag Phēnyx Athletica and tag us on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your host, Money Madu, and I'm excited to bring you guys episode 5 of the Phēnyx Lounge with Jonathan Martin. Jonathan Martin is an Emmy-nominated news anchor. He's also created several initiatives, including Beyond the Game. The goal is to inspire young men of color to dream big beyond sports. Additionally, he's founded Brunch, Body, and Soul, a brunch series to expose the community to healthier eating and fitness. So, no further ado, I appreciate you coming on, John. Is there anything as far as your background you want to expand on besides that?
I think you said it. I think you said it all. But no, I'm happy to be here, man. I've done a lot over the years. I've been a news anchor for 10, 12 years now, traveled in different cities, based here in Houston right now, which I love. But that's been my sort of bread and butter is being a journalist. But as you mentioned, I've been able to, with the grace of God, be able to do a lot of other things.
All right. So with that, because like me, myself, I'm an entrepreneur, and that had, in a sense, quote unquote, a 9-to-5 job. Do you find that there's a little bit of a struggle with having, your typical day job and also doing some of this other stuff on the side? Or do you find that, were you able to find a nice little balance to keep?
Well, it's hard because, you're right. When you're working your 9 to 5, especially if you have a boss like I do, they want you to be focused on the 9 to 5. But I also think it's so important to make sure that you have other outlets and things that you're passionate about. And, as a news anchor, I never wanted to be just the basic news anchor who read the news, read from a teleprompter. So I wanted to make sure that people who were watching me knew that I was more than just a guy in a suit. And so I love to be involved in the community. I love to do things. I'm always out doing things I'm passionate about, because that's key. A lot of people will just do stuff and it's not even something that they're passionate about. So, I like fitness. I like, being out in the community. I'm big on giving back to young people of color, especially young Black men. So everything I do, I try to make sure it ties together in some way, and that while I'm having my 9 to 5, if I'm doing something else, it makes sense.
Right. And so, so with that, I guess, tell us the journey of you becoming a news anchor for the audience that doesn't know.
Yeah, so it's crazy. I've been doing this since I was a little boy, 6 years old. I know that sounds crazy, but I would come home every day, and when my brothers would want to turn on cartoons, I would flip to the news channel because I love just news and current events. I was obsessed with the news anchors in Atlanta, where I'm from. I knew everything about them. And I was like, that's going to be me one day. There weren't any Black men really on TV at the time in Atlanta. Believe it or not, in Atlanta, it just wasn't, we were stuck on the weekends if we were on TV in terms of Black people. And I wanted to do this. And so I went to elementary school and middle school and high school. I was involved in yearbook. I was involved in anything that had to do with public speaking or anything like that I did. And so I went to Auburn University after that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that from a little boy, from the age of 6, I knew this is what I wanted to do. And so I always loved asking questions. I love to talk, and I loved, sort of being out in the community. So it was a perfect fit. And then I worked in Nashville. I've worked in New Orleans. I've worked in Augusta, Georgia, which is where I started my career. And I built my way up, thank God, to Houston, which is an amazing city in itself.
Right. So do you think that you'll stay in Houston for much longer, or is there a bigger market that you might have your sights set on?
People ask me that. I love Houston. I mean, Houston has been an amazing city to me. I came here, and I tell people I only knew 2 people here. They weren't even great friends, but people that I knew. And now I look at Houston, I'm like, man, I've got an army and a tribe of people who I support, and they support me. So Houston's just a really special place. I can't say that I'm gonna be here forever, but I know I'm here for now. If they're gonna keep me, I'll stay here.
Absolutely. So as far as being a news anchor, what is some tips that you can possibly give people that allows you to be successful, or just be successful in general?
I think it's important to be well-rounded in everything you do. Like I said, some people think that we just sit up in front of the camera and read the news, but I mean, That's why you go to school to be a journalist. There's media law you have to study. There's, learning how to write, learning how to, present yourself. And I feel like, especially as a Black man, I don't like to always bring race into it, but you got to be good at what you do, because a lot of times you represent and you open the door for the next person who's coming. And sometimes Black men in this business have a reputation for just like, oh, they needed a token Black guy, so they put him on the desk. No, you want to be great so that the next person who comes behind you, they can say, well, Jonathan, he was great, and let's bring in another one. So I always encourage a lot of the young Black men that I mentor to like be great at everything. Make sure that you keeping yourself together physically. Make sure that your social media is on point. Make sure that you are writing well, that you are well sourced, that you're in the community, because you want to be well-rounded and almost undeniable. So when you're up for that job, they're like, hey, that's our guy.
Right. And so with that, was there a few mentors along the way that, made a big impact to where you are able to become today?
Yeah, I had several people who mentored me and took me under their wing growing up. Ryan Young, who's now at CNN, was someone who I looked up to. He always would really, he was young at the time too. I think he was like 29, met him in Atlanta during my internship. And he really just coached me and really believed in me. I also had DeMarco Morgan, who's at CBS. And, a lot of people I looked up to just watching them on the news, but those guys were a few years older than me and really just helped me when it came to my writing, when it came to presenting myself on camera, like, hey, dude, don't wear that again. That like everything. They would tell me everything. And you need people who are going to be honest with you, but who really want to see you succeed.
Right, right. So what would be some challenges that you faced during your career?
Well, I think, like I said, I've been in situations where I felt like as a Black man on television, it's been limited. Like people sometimes, okay, I was not in Houston, but there was a previous market I was in where I felt like I didn't get certain opportunities because they had their Black guy who was on the air and on the anchor desk, and they only needed one. And
right.
So I don't feel like I got some of the same opportunities. And you can't really do that in Houston because we are such a city that is diverse with people of color. So you can't just not have people who look like the community. But there are some cities where, it's just not as easy. So I feel like I've had some obstacles when it comes to that. And I think also sometimes having your voice heard when it comes to covering certain stories, because I know my coworkers sometimes roll their eyes a little bit because I'm very outspoken when it comes to coverage, especially in communities of color. If something needs to be covered, I'll say, we need to cover this story. You may not know why it's important, but it is. And I think it's important to be a voice in the community and not just be someone who's on TV reading the news, but when you're in those meetings behind closed doors, fighting and advocating for communities. And I certainly do that.
Absolutely. That's awesome to hear, to be honest.
Yeah, man, it's crazy because sometimes stories will be pitched and somebody may pass on a story because they just don't understand its importance. And I'm saying, no, this is important to the Black community because of this. This is why this is important. So I tell people one of the reasons that it's so important to be involved in the community as an anchor is because you need to know the people that you're reporting on. So if I'm doing a story about the school district at Worthing High School or, Booker T. Washington High School, I've been to those schools. I know those principals. I know students in that school. So I bring a different perspective than just saying, oh, that's that, hood school over there. Yeah, they always have issues. Like I can say, no, I've been in that school and here are some of the challenges that they face. So I think that's why it's so key as an anchor and a reporter to actually be in your community, not just talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. So is there anything, one or two things that you wish you knew starting out that you know now, obviously, but you wish you knew earlier on?
You're talking about in just terms of career. I think the main thing is that everything isn't going to be fair. I think sometimes, in every industry, especially like the news industry, I don't know how it is in your industry, but like it's just kind of competitive and cutthroat. And while you may be the most qualified, while you may have the best, resume or whatever, it's not always going to be. You just may not have to get the opportunity, maybe given to somebody else. But I just wish I had known that coming in, because sometimes I'm a person that's so much by the numbers and by the book. Like, okay, I have this highest score, so I should get the prize. But when you go into sometimes some of these fields, it's not about that. It's about a bunch of other things: who you know, who you don't know, who knows you. all kinds of stuff. So I wish I kind of had to just realize, like, Jonathan, you got to realize and play the game smarter and sooner sometimes than I did.
Right, right. And it's interesting that you say that because, like, even before I started like Phēnyx, the one of the things that I was doing initially, I was an engineer. Just being in that world, you know, you think that going by the book and being loyal to a company is something that is really important. And while that is, you know, there's so many other factors that are going on around you that, you know, things that you think that you deserve and you probably do deserve, for whatever reason, end up get you know, put behind the shadow just because, you know, someone else's dad was you know, the CEO.
Yeah, man, and you know, that's how it is. That is always how it is. And you just have to, instead of being bitter about it and complaining, you have to learn and fit in and realize, not try to fit in, but like figure out how you can also get in there and play the same game and beat them at the game that they're playing as well. Because that's just the way life is.
Right. So with that, let's see how we could tie this into fitness a little bit. So as a news anchor, especially so like you obviously is apparent that you're into fitness. Is it something where, you know, you've been working out for the majority of your life, or at least your teen years up until now, or is it something that is more so recent, or before you just started your career?
Well, actually, I started working out when I was in college. I remember, and it's funny, people are like, why'd you start working out? I mean, I've always played sports, so we had to work out playing basketball in high school, but I remember there was a couple of girls that called me skinny in college, and I was just like, man, and it was like, but wait, but no, I was skinny. I looked back at some pictures, and I was just skinny, the skinny kid with this big head. So I was like, let me get in the gym. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, and I realized, like, I really enjoy working out, and it's just grown and become a part of my lifestyle. And I would go work out by myself, no trainer. Then I started reading magazines, and then I start working out with friends. And then it just built up where sort of like it was sort of a part of my brand, and people would see me and talk to me and ask me fitness questions or want me to do fitness things. And I'm like, wait, but I'm just this guy who started working out. But I've learned sometimes that I was talking to Arrow, who you and I both know, and we were talking about sometimes we don't feel adequate enough to talk about certain things. We think, well, hey, I'm just a regular guy. Sometimes when people ask me to speak on panels, I'm like, but I'm just a news anchor. But like, you sometimes have to realize, wow, I've been doing this for 12 years or 13 years. And so maybe I am kind of an expert at this and I kind of know what I'm doing. And so the same thing with fitness, I've had to own that, hey, if people embrace that side of me and the fitness thing and they want to ask me questions or invite me on to talk about it, then embrace that and don't downgrade yourself to feel like maybe you're not ready to do that, because at the end of the day, you are farther along than probably most people.
Right. And you know, it's important that you say that because I have that same issue where, you know, you never know who's looking up to you, and you know, where your position is at currently, someone might be 10 times behind, but they're looking up to become where you're at. And so while you have these goals set to be at a certain place, you know, to them, you're looking like, you know, a superhero in a sense.
Yeah,
so
exactly. So you have to embrace that and realize that it's not always perfection, because sometimes I can be a perfectionist, like, no, I'm not there yet. But then sometimes it's like, but you are there, and we're all learning and growing along the way. But be okay with not being perfect. Be okay with not having it all together, but still being able to teach someone how to get to where you are.
Right. So was there any kind of, I guess, obstacle in your life that fitness helped you, in a sense, overcome?
You know, I wouldn't say an obstacle from, I just think we all go through stuff in life. Let's face it, we all go through stuff, but I think fitness has been something that has been one of the most consistent things in my life, because I think when you go through disappointments, when you go through relationships, when you go through just changes in the environment, anything you go through, like, fitness has been something I've always done and been consistent with. So for me, I feel like it's helped me just with everything, because I've never been one of those people that worked out for a summer body. I never worked out for, let me get right for this photo shoot. I've always just believed in staying fit year round and being ready, as they say, year round, and getting better and learning new things. And so for me, I think fitness has just been a level of consistency, because so much changes in our life. I mean, from day to day, even with this pandemic, everything changes. But I can honestly say fitness is something that I've never really let go of completely.
Right. And so during this pandemic, like how drastic has your routine changed, if at all?
Well, I've been lucky. It was certainly changed. Let me just say that, because I used to go work out at the gym, Athletic here in Houston in the Heights, which was, part of my routine. And I just knew I wasn't going to sit out for 2 or 3 months and not do anything. So I really got into running. I started running 2 or 3 miles, and I'm not a runner. So for me, that was like, okay. But I started off by just jogging, and then I would get a little more. Now I'm up to like 4 or 5 miles. So I started running at the parks. I bring up my jump rope. I'm really big into jumping rope. That's a really good cardio, HIIT cardio. And then I've been working out with Arrow, who's a trainer. He has a small, one-on-one training gym. So we've been working out a lot, and really happy with the progress so far.
Awesome. So in a sense, you've been able to maintain through personal training and
yeah, I've been able to maintain. I've been working out about 4 to 5 days a week. Usually about 3 days is actual resistance training, and then the other days I'll do jump rope, and some days I'll do 2 a days. I'll work out with Arrow in the morning, and we'll work out for a couple hours, and then at night when I have a break for dinner, I'll go run at the park or do my jump rope. So just trying to stay consistent, and that was one of my big things during this pandemic, is that I didn't want to waste this time. I didn't want to say, oh, I'm gonna come out of here, 10 pounds heavier or out of shape. I said, okay, this is time for me to get back to the basics. And even though I don't have the typical gym, and I don't have some of the things I'm used to, I can still be healthy. I can also eat healthier. I'm really proud of myself with the diet even. Like, I had someone meal prep my food because I really wanted to make sure I was being consistent. And that's so big for me, just the consistency.
Could you go into that a little bit more with like some of the things that you're eating or that you incorporate into your diet?
Yeah, I'm really big on no fried foods. I don't do any fried foods. I also cut down on alcohol. I really only try to drink on occasion, maybe once a month. I don't really do any carbs after lunchtime. So I'll try to do all of my carbohydrates in the morning, whether it be oatmeal. I may do for lunch, maybe some brown rice or a little sweet potato, but try not to have those carbs sitting on me all day. And I just really try to do a lot of high protein, really getting my protein in throughout the day. And that's about it. I don't really do a lot. I really try to eat clean. I stopped eating burgers and fries and pork and all this stuff like many years ago. And I like that stuff too. It's funny because I like a good Chick-fil-A fried sandwich too, but I've learned that, you really have to be disciplined, because once you find other alternatives to that type of food, your body also just kind of is like, I don't need that anymore. I'm good.
And also with that, I mean, this is just as a spectator, but I feel like, when you are on TV all the time, it's like everything becomes magnified. And if you were, in a sense, gaining weight or losing weight or whatever it was, that, you probably wouldn't be satisfied with yourself, looking at yourself in the camera or whatnot. So
yeah, I mean, maybe not. I mean, I don't think we don't have it as hard as men. I don't think, because people aren't like judging us like, man, you gained 10 pounds. I think the women have it a little bit harder because people judge them so much on their appearance on TV. But if I've always been kind of relatively, smaller guy. I'm not what I'm saying compared to a lot of guys. I mean, I'm 6'3", so I'm tall, but I guarantee you, if I started getting a little bigger, some folks would be like, hey, like, you've been eating something. But that's okay. It ain't nothing wrong with a little,
right.
A little weight.
So one thing I found out is that, one of now my business partner, Peter, and I guess you do dancing. And can you go a little bit into that and how that has been maybe a part of your life?
Man, so I started dancing when I was a little boy. My brothers, I have 2 brothers, so all 3 of my brothers, we would just be dancing around the house to MC Hammer. I mean, really anything that would really come on. And then it turned into when we would visit our cousins, we would dance as well. And then I just always would dance. Like, dancing was just a big part of my life growing up with my brothers. And I would take some classes here and there, danced in college with some folks, started a hip hop troupe there. And then I kind of stayed really, really low key about it because I knew I wanted to be a news anchor. And I was so worried about, okay, you can't be a news anchor and be dancing and be doing fitness. Like, you can't be doing all that. So I really was afraid of, that stunning my career. And it's funny because when I got to Houston, they asked me to do Dancing with the Houston Stars. And I was kind of hesitant. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I'm this new news anchor to the city. I don't want people thinking I'm just some dude that is dumb and can't really. But I ended up doing Dancing with the Houston Stars. And I was like, you know what, Jonathan? Go big or go home. Like, go big. And so I ended up winning Dancing with the Houston Stars. And the response from that was amazing. The community was like, whoa, you're the dancing news anchor. Like, when I would go out in public, that's what people want to talk about. They wouldn't want to talk about the stories I did or anything like that. They would want to talk about being able to dance. And so one of the things I learned from that is just like, show who you are, be who you are. Don't try to fit into anybody's box. People a lot of times will try to tell you, oh, you're a news anchor, so you've got to be this. You've got to wear this, Navy suit and a red tie. And no, don't fit in people's boxes. Be who you are. And you can be more than one thing. And that's the thing I always try to tell people is that you don't have to be one thing. God made us to be multi-layered, to be multifaceted. So if you want to be a news anchor who likes to dress and who can dance and who likes to travel and who you can do it all. And even if some people don't like it, that's okay, because at the end of the day, you can go to sleep knowing that you're being authentically who you are.
Right. And that's 100%, because, a lot of people want to stay in that box, or they just are afraid to get judged. But it's one of those things where someone out there is can relate to your story, and people attach themselves to a story. So
yeah, but I think it's so important though. I tell a lot of young journalists will come and ask me, like, how do you do so many things? How do you do the fitness and then the dance and be out in the community and still be an anchor? I tell people you have to, at the end of the day, make sure you're taking care of your bread and butter. I'm a news anchor, so I take that job seriously. I still go out and land exclusive interviews. I still will break stories. So it's not like I'm just out doing fitness and dancing, but I'm not doing my real job. So I tell people, do your real job, be great at that, because at the end of the day, nobody can say, oh, well, all he is dancing. He ain't doing nothing for real. Like, you want to make sure that you're excellent in everything you do, so nobody can ever discredit you from some of the side hustles or side things that you do.
So obviously you're nominated for an Emmy. Like, what goes into that process, or to become nominated for
that? So we have Emmys in the just like we have there are Emmys for like television shows that you might see. There's news Emmys, so it's like a different type of Emmy that is just for like news. And so I've been nominated actually several times throughout the course of my career for some different stories that I've done, also for my anchoring. And so what we do basically, just like other award shows, you submit a sample of your work, or your station does, and you're judged by a team, and then they come back with the nominations. And so I've never been a person that really was big on awards. Like, some people love to like talk about how many Emmys they have or how many awards they have. That's great. I think it's amazing if you have them. But I also try not to get caught up in like the awards, because we all know great actors and actresses who have no awards, and we have some people that aren't that great that have like a bunch of awards and Grammys. So I think it's all about just making sure that you're doing good work. But I do appreciate the nominations and stuff.
Right. I mean, it's always good to be recognized and appreciated.
Yeah, it's always good to be recognized, especially when it's by your peers or by people in the industry to say, hey, you're doing good stuff, or this is great. So
is there a particular story that's your favorite one that you were able to cover?
Man, I've covered so many good stories. I've interviewed a lot of amazing people. So I'll say, even just being in Houston, some of my favorite people to interview, Yolanda Adams, George Foreman have been some of my favorite people just that I've met and been able to talk to. I've also been able to talk to Joe Biden briefly in an interview. But I really think the stories I like are just about people in the community. I love stories that, while I've covered so many stories, it's hard to really pick one. But yeah, man, I can't. Just good stories about people. I mean, like I said, I really fight for stories in the Black community, and sometimes I feel like I'm fighting so hard for certain stories to get covered. But actually, one of the biggest stories I really enjoyed covering, well, not biggest stories. I enjoyed, of course, when the Super Bowl was here in Houston, and all that. That was one of my most memorable. And of course, Hurricane Harvey was most memorable too. But Dr. Thomas Freeman, who's a debate coach over at Texas Southern, he's 100 years old, legendary guy, taught Martin Luther King Jr. and Denzel Washington and the great debaters. He was the sort of inspiration behind that movie. And he's just an amazing soul, amazing spirit. He'll be turning 101 years old actually next month. And so doing sit down profiles of people like that who have so much history, I enjoy that. Like, you know, the run of the mill shootings and fires, like that's cool. You know, that's news you got to cover. But I enjoy like those profile pieces to really get to know people who come before us.
Right, right. That's awesome. So with that, is there a certain height in your career that you plan to, like, what is your goal with becoming an anchor? Is there like
Yeah. It's funny because people will sometimes say, oh man, you're going to be on CNN one day, or you're going to be on this one day. And I tell people, like, that's never really been my goal, because I've worked at the network level for a little bit, and there's a lot of travel that goes into that. There's a lot of unpredictability that goes into it. And I think it's an amazing opportunity for people who have it. But for me, like, I enjoy making an impact on my community. I do community appearances here in Houston every single week. Obviously with COVID, I haven't been able to, but I'm out in the community every week. And for me, that's most important. Like, I love that connection to a community. So for me, I just really feel like God will lead me to where I need to be. But I have had to stop that feeling of, and I don't know if you ever get this, I feel like you got to be at the next step and the next level all the time. And you're like, okay, when I get here, I got to do this. When I make this, I got to make that. And we have this kind of destination addiction. And so I'm learning, you know, man, that sometimes you got to just sit in the sweet spot that God gives you. You know, be great, take care of the position, because sometimes I feel like, you know, we want that next position, we want that next opportunity, but God is saying, stay here, do what I've asked you to do here before trying to go to the next place. Finish this assignment first. And so that's what I'm trying to do, just be faithful in where I am and not try to look too far ahead.
Yeah, no, I definitely had that, especially when I was working in the corporate world of always wanted to get promoted, trying to, you know, in a sense, climb up that corporate ladder as quick as possible. But, you know, just most recently, now that I've, you know, become a full-time entrepreneur, just being able to enjoy the process, you know, like everything that's going to happen is going to happen on it at its own time, at the right time. So just enjoy the process, continue to be happy, and just stay present instead of always looking forward. Like, obviously you need to look forward just for, you know, business and everything else, but staying present, enjoy the moment. And I think that's one of the things that's been.
Yeah. It's hard because when you're somebody like you and me, when you're a go-getter, when you are an entrepreneur, when you are one of these people that's a grinder, you want to always be looking ahead, and you should, but it's just also important to like really marinate in the space that you're in and to be great at that, because sometimes we want the next thing before we've even taken care of the thing that we have. It's like, you know, we want to be blessed with that next promotion, but have we done great where we are? And we have to ask ourselves, have we really taken care of that space? And that's what I try to do, is like, make sure that you have this together, that this room is clean before you try to move into the other room. Right. Or at least, you know, in the process of it.
So I just wanted to kind of allow you to deep dive a little bit. So, you know, you have one of your initiatives called Beyond the Game. Could you deep dive into that a little bit?
Yes. Yeah, so the Beyond the Game is an initiative that I started. I started Beyond the Game because I was seeing so many young Black men when I would go around to these schools. You would ask them about their dreams and aspirations, and half of them, sometimes more than half, would talk about being a ball player and being you know, a rapper or whatever. And that's totally fine if that is the path that is for you, which we know it is for some people. But for me, I wanted to make sure these young men were able to be exposed to other people who look like them, who were doing great things and who were successful, because we all know that most of the guys in that school, each school, are not going to go on to be pro athletes. The numbers show that. I was fortunate growing up, man, that I had a dad who was a CPA and who owned businesses, and an uncle who was an architect, and men around me who were doing amazing things. And they were athletic, but they also were educated and successful. So it's been amazing going around to schools. And so I literally came up with this idea one day, went and ran it by my bosses, and I just put it together and got a bunch of men in the community who I felt would be, you know, good speakers, but also relatable. Because that's the thing, you don't want just a bunch of lawyers and doctors coming up and speaking to these young men, and they're like, all right, whatever, like, I'm from the hood, like, anybody in my family graduated from high school, and you trying to tell me to go be a doctor? That's not the message we want to send. It's like, hey, you can do other things and be successful. You can own your own business. You can go to college, but we're not trying to say, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a scientist, because for some of those kids, you need to just hook them into finishing high school first.
Right.
So that's what we do. And I'm hoping to bring it back next year if COVID-19 is not a concern.
How long has this been going on, the initiative?
Oh man, I started it. I can't even remember the first one, but we visited pretty much most of the, I'd say, high schools in the inner city so far. So we're a good like 6 or 7 months we've been going strong, and it's been great. And I've had different people, everyone from some athletes, some current and former athletes. I've had Matthew Knowles on there talking about his journey. He was very transparent. I've had just different men from the Houston community. Vince Young, former Longhorn and NFL quarterback. I mean, so it's just been good to have a lot of these men. And you think sometimes, are these guys will they participate? Every person I've called has said, yes, I'm there. When do you need me? I'll be back. And obviously, like I said, we had COVID-19 happen, but you're going to be coming and joining us when we get back started as well. So looking forward to that.
Yeah. And so with that, that's an amazing thing. Because I remember, the very first time we met, that was when you had brought that up. I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, this is literally what I want to do, because, besides what I'm doing with Phēnyx, one of the things I like to do is trying to catch our youth kind of early and make sure that they're, financially literate and get to a point to where, they aren't succumb to somebody else's ideology of what they should be. And so, like, obviously, if only thing that you see is ball players, you think that's the only thing that you can be, and to be able to show them different.
That exposure is so important. It's like just being able to say, wow, we even had an astronaut come. There's only like 14 astronauts, Black astronauts who've been up in space. And we had Dr. Bernard Harris come on. And it's just like interesting when you see some of these kids like, wow, I met an astronaut today. Like, I mean, just the fact, I met someone who owns their own business. I met someone who's a news anchor. Like, even you'll remember that, because we all remember that one person who came to our high school or our middle school when we were younger, and like their presence, something that they said stuck with us. Right. That's why it's so important to catch these young men in middle school or in high school, because they remember that. And if they say, well, this guy like started his own business and he grew up on the same street in the same neighborhood that I did, and he did this, like I can do that. And I always tell people with this beyond the game thing is that we know we're not going to change every young man's mind or steer them in the right direction. But if you can turn the light bulb on for 1 or 2 at each school, then man, is that not powerful?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so how about the Brunch Body and Soul? Like, how did that start? Sorry.
Man, I'm always coming up with ideas. Like, I'll call my friend, actually, Joshua Dada, and you know some of the same people. So I called up some of my friends, Latoria Lemon, who's also a friend of mine. I said, hey, I have this brunch idea. I want to do this thing called Brunch Body and Soul, where the focus is on healthy eating, because I feel like, especially as African Americans, like, we love to eat certain foods. Everyone, well, let me just take that back. We all love to eat in Houston, but I feel like, especially among our community, we don't always eat the healthiest. And even we've seen in COVID-19, when it comes to some of the health disparities like high blood pressure and hypertension, it disproportionately affects our people. And so I wanted to do something that was geared toward the minority community, but eating healthier, but still had a social element to it, where, hey, you can eat this and you can drink this, but you can make it healthier, so you don't always have to go with like the worst option in terms of food. So I created that, and we've had a couple of those, and I'm hoping to get back to it. I know it's with COVID-19, everything's just up in the air. But Brunch Body and Soul was just a way to like highlight the brunch, which is healthier food, and different chefs who are making healthier foods. The body, by bringing fitness professionals in there who can give some fitness tips. And then soul is just having like not only the music, just good soul music, but also the soul of just like taking care of yourself. Like the message of like taking better care of yourself, internally and externally.
So overall, just your career, fitness, everything, just you as a person, what do you want to be known for, like, at the end of the day?
I just want to be known as someone who did more than one thing, who wasn't known as just a news anchor. It's funny because I don't really post a lot about being a news anchor. I don't post a lot of clips, because for me, I want to be known more as somebody who gave back to the community, who cared about other people. And it's weird because even doing podcasts like this and talks like this, I sometimes will say no because I don't want to always talk about myself. I'm like, I don't want to talk about myself. It's not about me. But I also appreciate the time to spread the message. So I just want to be known as a giving person. My granddad has always been, let me say that again. My granddad and my dad have always been very community-minded people, my mom. And so that's where I get it from. I'm always out in the community because I learned from them that this is not about you. If you have a platform, use your platform to help somebody else. And so therefore, whatever I do, I always want to just say, well, what's the benefit in it for somebody else? Because you always get blessed tenfold or you know, whatever down the line. But I just always want to be known as somebody that gave back and help my community. Like, that's my main thing. I don't want people to, because at the end of the day, people aren't going to remember that story that you did 6 months ago. They're not going to remember that, you know, tie that you were on the news 3 months ago, but they'll remember when you came to their school. They'll remember when you hosted that event. They'll remember those words of, you know, encouragement or affirmation that you gave them. So that's why it's so important to be out there among the people, especially our people.
And I guess before, you know, we start wrapping it up, I have a question that, you know, I feel like this might be controversial in a bit, but do you feel, especially like people like us, is it more so that we have to have that pressure of being a role model for the people behind, like the generation behind us? Do you feel that pressure in a sense?
I don't feel pressure, but I just feel like it's always important to carry yourself in a way that people would be proud. I always think about whenever I do things, I'm representing my family, I'm representing my late grandparents, I'm representing other Black men on TV, I'm representing other people in the community. And so I always just try to think, whenever I do, whatever I say, whatever I post, am I representing myself, my family, and people around me in a positive way, or am I doing something that's negative or that is not true to who I am? And so I don't necessarily say be a role model, like you got to tell people, hey, go to school and like do everything that I did. And no, but I think you can still be positive in whatever it is you do, because everybody's not going to, you know, be a role model. Everyone's not going to have the same upbringing, but doing your part to help somebody else. I tell people, even if you can just help one young man come up under you or help one young person, it's worth it.
Right. Yeah. The reason I brought it up is because, like, I'm sure you've maybe heard it, like Barkley, right? Like, kids look up to for example, NBA players and things like that, because, you know, in their head, they're almost like superheroes. And so, like, you know, that is a lot of pressure. So when they, in a sense, start making mistakes, you know, obviously they're, in a sense, held to higher standards. And, you know, Barkley's like, I'm not a role model, so don't look at me as such. But I feel like, in a sense, that's a pressure that unfortunately we have to bear to make sure that people like us to look up to, so that they know that they can always be going into the right direction.
Yeah, I agree and disagree with, you know, like, and with Barkley, like, I love his, how candid he is. We both went to Auburn University, so I've been around him many, many times at different alumni events. But at the same time, I do believe when God blesses you with a platform, you are in some ways, especially a public platform, you are a role model in many ways. And people look up to you, people listen to you, they watch you. And I'm always cognizant of that. So I'm very deliberate of what I do, where I do it, what I say, because your words do matter. And the things that you do, people are watching you and being influenced by you, whether it's on a big local scale or a national, global scale, like some of these other people have with their platform. So I think we all have to be aware of what we say and do. That's all.
Awesome. So I guess last question would be, who are, let's say, the three most influential people in your life?
Three most influential people. I'd say, first of all, my dad, hands down, both my parents, but my dad, I really, he's so influential to me because he's a business owner, he's successful. And my dad has always had this quiet confidence about him. My dad is very successful. He's done so many things. He's helped so many people, but you would never know it unless you know it. And I think that's the thing I've learned from him, is that you don't always have to make the most noise. You don't always have to brag about what you do, what you have. Just work, and people will see you. They'll see you, they'll hear you, but you don't always have to tell people, hey, I'm doing these great things. And so I get sort of that low keyness and that sort of chill side of me from my dad, but he's so also audacious. And I love the fact that he has started companies and done things just because he believed in himself enough to be successful. And so I really look up to him a lot. And then I'd say my mom as well, because she always has given back. Like that, her big thing is giving back. My mom has a nonprofit called Just Us Girls in Atlanta, and it is all for underprivileged girls in the city of Atlanta. My mom had 3 boys. She never had any girls. And so once we were all grown and out of the house, she wanted to spend the rest of her life giving back to young girls in the city of Atlanta. And that is something that is just so inspiring, because she could have just retired, but she said, no, I feel like my life's mission is to help young girls become the woman that I was able to become. So she's influential in that regard. And then I'm gonna go keep it with my family. I have 2 brothers. Both of my brothers are inspiring to me because they both push me to be me. And one of the things I like that my younger brother told me one day, he said, Jonathan, I love when you dance. I was like, why you love when I dance? He said, because you're giving us your most authentic self. He said, that's you. He's like, we know you as Jonathan. People know you as the guy in the news, but we know you as just this fun guy who's always like, going crazy. And I think that having people that you always can lean on, that are your blood, your brothers that love you and support you, but also will check you, they all inspire me. And I'm blessed to have a family that is, that I don't have to look far for inspiration. I don't have to look beyond my household.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And this is a great episode. I'm glad that you were able to make it on with us this week. Where can our listeners follow up with you? Or
yeah. So of course, if you're in Houston, you can watch on Fox 26 News. I'm on at 5 and 9 o'clock during the weekday. Also on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, I'm at JMartinTV, JMartin TV. And then if you want to find me on Facebook, I use Facebook sometimes, Jonathan Martin, Fox 26. And I'm on social media. I answer my DMs and emails and all that stuff. So I look forward to talking to people. I'm always, encouraged and inspired by other people and what they're doing. So feel free, if you got an idea or something we can partner on, let me know.
Awesome. So yeah, you guys heard it. Make sure y'all follow him on all platforms and social media. And we'll catch you guys next week with a new episode.
All right, appreciate it.